Through Superman's history, the Man of Steel has appeared in 36 video games, with 17 of them being solo outings. But unlike his best batty buddy, Superman has never gotten the proper gaming treatment he deserves, which begs the question of why. Superman is iconic, a character that'll be around as long as there are superheroes. So why hasn't there ever been a good Superman game? Well, join me over the next few hours as we analyze 3 of Superman's most prominent outings and compare them against the character's history, lore, and world to find out why these experiences never land. And finally, we will answer the question of if there is a future in gaming for the Man of Tomorrow.
In 1997, a development studio called Titus Interactive began work on a Superman game titled Superman: The New Adventures. It was based on the animated series of the same name and aimed to be the most comprehensive Superman game ever created. Titus envisioned a fully open world in which the Man of Steel could explore and use his abilities to the fullest capacity. It was an ambitious project, even during a time when gaming was undergoing a massive shift in quality. Unfortunately, due to many reasons, the game we're talking about doesn't exist. Instead, what came out at the end of the development period is a game I'm sure many of you are familiar with. A game better known by the name of Superman 64. Now, to give you a little introduction, Superman 64 was released in 1999 and follows Superman as he's transported into a virtual world created by Brainiac and Lex Luthor. Following that, he's pretty much made to complete a bunch of different puzzles to save Lois, Jimmy, and Professor Hamilton, which, if you don't know who that is, that's Superman's like forgotten tech guy. I don't think he's shown up in a comic since like 2004 or something. But yeah, going into this game, I was like, it doesn't sound that bad. I mean, I've watched every episode of Superman the Animated Series and I love it. I think it does for Superman what BTAS did for Batman. It's got a cast of great voice actors that really bring the characters to life. The art style is great, the music is great, and it tells a collection of good stories which define the character pretty thoroughly. The only criticism I'd throw its way is that Superman is pretty weak in this iteration to an annoying degree. It's like action scenes weren't allowed to be a back and forth fight. Superman always gets his ass kicked for 5 minutes straight and then locks in at the very end and wins. But who am I kidding? This is the show where a train track blows up and Superman grabs 2 bits of steel and holds up the whole train. This show is awesome. All right, I'm getting off topic, but what I'm trying to get at is I was thinking, if it's based off something I like, how bad can it really be? But before we get into this, if we're going to be fair to this game, I need to tell you about development. Like I said before, Titus Interactive was interested in making a proper Superman game. In an interview that Titus's co-founder Eric Kane did with Playboy magazine, he explained that the game was going to be the first open world 3D superhero game and that it would stretch the Nintendo 64 to its utter limits. But there was a problem. Meanwhile, over in Warner Brothers land, the licensing team that okayed Superman 64 was let go, and the replacement team instantly took a disliking to Titus's project. Kane put their disdain like this: they believed a major company such as EA Games would pay more and create a better product. Which is ironic because Titus was the only game development studio that actually wanted to make a Superman game. No one else wanted to touch the IP. But you know guys, we are talking about Warner Brothers here, reoccurring villain on the channel. Their creative side, oh, chef's kiss. I love their stuff, but like the people who make business decisions for that company, you probably couldn't find a more out of touch group of people if you went to Jeff Bezos' birthday party. So anyways, their genius brand new licensing department started micromanaging the shit out of Superman 64. And the first thing they asked Titus to do was change the game from an action-adventure experience to a SimCity type game where Superman would be the mayor.
What?
But of course, Titus said no, and this only made things worse. From this point on, WB Licensing had their grubby little hands in every element of the game. Titus wanted a beat-em-up superhero game, but WB Licensing said, no, Superman would never hurt a real person. Titus wanted destructible environments, but WB Licensing said, Superman can't be a bad person. In fact, WB was so concerned with Superman being portrayed in a poor light that they forced Titus to set the game entirely within a virtual world so that there was no real damage done. But of course, this was all bullshit. For some reason, WB was trying to delay this game as hard as possible, and they were doing that while hiding behind the argument of legacy preservation. In one instance, there was even an issue about Superman flying underwater because according to WB, Superman wouldn't do that. Development on the game slowly turned from being an actual dev cycle to being a sparring match between Titus and WB. Titus literally had to comb through comic books, find Superman doing a thing they wanted him to do in the game, and show it to WB just to get a feature approved. Like a little side note, right? This is what actual unemployment looks like. Like sure, whoever was pulling the strings at WB Marketing, they have a job on paper, but still, like, get a job. What are you doing? How do you have time to orchestrate this buffoonery? Anyways, it got so bad that eventually it was taking months to get single characters approved for this game, which is most likely why every second enemy in the final product is a robot. In the end, WB's relentless interference crippled Titus's development. With the amount of uncertainty there was around every feature, many bugs went unfixed, and the game had taken a backseat to the conflict surrounding it. But finally, after 2 years of micromanagement and arguing, Superman: The New Adventures saw the light of day, and the game released to fantastic sales. But what a lot of people found when plugging in Superman 64 for the first time was nothing more than a half-baked mess. And today we're going to be jumping in to see exactly what all the fuss is about. Is Superman 64 truly one of the worst games of all time? Well, I will be walking you through my experience playing this specimen of a game, and by the end of the video, it should be pretty clear. So booting up the game, I first do have to mention that this game requires something called a controller pack to work. It's essentially like this little save card that you use to, well, save your game. But at the time that I was playing this, I didn't have one of these because I didn't know that I needed an extra thing to save my game after I'd already bought the console. So yeah, this means that I was gonna have to play the whole thing in one sitting. But it looked like I was in for something pretty fun. I mean, the main menu itself is a great taste test for what you're about to experience. And the whole thing just zooms in like a slideshow transition. Look, I can do that too. Whoa. Also, speaking of transitions, I've not laughed this hard at something so dumb in a very long time. But like, look at these character bios, dude. But anyways, jumping in, the game starts with Lex Luthor taunting Superman, what else is new? And then he sends Jimmy, Lois, and Hamilton into the Matrix, and then boom.
Then there's no time to waste.
We have entered the nightmare of Superman 64. Now, you've probably heard of the rings in this game, you know, the flying stages. It is infamous, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. First up, there is a ton of input lag. Like, you'll press anything and half a second later it happens, which is pretty annoying considering that you need to move quickly and with precision during these flying levels. And I mean, like, the precision part of this is probably the worst bit because, like, Superman moves like a fucking cinder block given wings. And I say cinder block because there's not even a button to slow the motherfucker down. The only way to stop accelerating is just straight up take your finger off the accelerator button. Imagine if your car only had a gas pedal and no brakes. Oh, if you think that's bad, Superman also has the turn radius of a fucking limo for some reason. As well as that, different parts of the map lag more than others. So just when you get used to flying with half a second of input lag, it suddenly starts running normally. There's points where the lag is so inconsistent, you can lose total control over Superman. And I think by this point, when I'm actually filming the video and I've played this game for an unholy amount of hours, the shock of how shit the flying is has obviously faded a bit. But no joke, on my first run, it took me 28 minutes to finish the first flying section. Oh, and by the way, that's 28 minutes listening to this shit on loop, bro. But getting to an area that looks like the street mats everyone had as a kid, we're thrust into our first minigame, where you have to pick up 2 cars before they can hit some civilians. And this one is the easiest challenge in the game, but it does represent one of its biggest problems, which is you finish flying through some rings, then they shove an objective in your face and say, "You've got 10 seconds!" And you know what the crazy thing is? If you fail it, you go right back to the start of the ring section you just completed. Also, every single time you die, you just hear Lex chuckle in your ear a little bit. It says Lex wins, and you hear like But the worst thing is that when you respawn, Superman either says,
Then there's no time to waste. Then there's no time to waste. Then there's no time to waste. Then there's no time to waste.
Or
This looks like a job for Superman.
It gets so repetitive. I've got this voice line burned in my fucking brain, dude. I've heard that stupid line more than my own name. Now, can you just imagine doing this for hours and hours? Wrestling with laggy controls, extremely short time limits, shitty music, Lex laughing at you, Superman going, there's no time to waste every 5 seconds. I mean, just the underlying anger Superman 64 builds within me is really something quite special. I legit wanted to break my controller. It's a miracle this thing is here with us today. But for the rest of the level, there's a few more challenges between flying bits. In one, we fight some Lex Luthor goons who have kryptonite pistols, which don't tell anyone I said this, but the fighting feels okay. I mean, for all the things they got wrong about Superman in this game, but the one thing they did get right, Superman one-punches goons, no questions asked. The other missions aren't as easy as just punching them though, because, well, look, this game needed a hint feature because there are no tutorials. If you want to learn something, you have to go down to the controls and story menu, and over the next few slides, you learn how to play the game. But why wasn't this shown? Why do I have to look at a menu to figure out how to move? You know, all of these challenges could have been the perfect tutorials, but they end up just being kind of like tough love lessons. Like for what would make a great grab tutorial comes in the form of a side mission where Superman has to escort a police car to the end of a road. The problem here is that there is a ton of enemies with rocket launchers lying around, and you might be thinking, I should take all these guys out. But no, you will not be quick enough. What you need to do is you have to speed up to the car, grab it, fly away, take it to the end of the road. But you have to grab the car the absolute second the little challenge starts. Otherwise you fail. They blow up the car like instantly. But we, the player, are never given a tutorial on how to pick things up. So how was I meant to complete this first go round? This is like if you were playing Heavy Rain and you had to guess the QuickTime event inputs. But then there is also the superpowers introduction, where the game says, use your super breath to blow away the tornadoes, which is like, yeah, cool. That sounds pretty Superman-y. And by now, I'd read the tutorial, I knew all the controls, so I was pretty damn confused when I pressed the super breath button and nothing fucking happened. It only took me a few times fucking failing this mission before I realized, I should check out a guide. So looking up an IGN guide, I found out that the reason I couldn't use my super breath is because I hadn't picked up the super breath token lying right here. Like, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm gonna go play a Superman game, I'm kind of rooting for the idea that I'm gonna be able to play as Superman with all of his superpowers. Can you actually imagine if this was a thing that the character had to do? Like Superman had to go find some bullshit coin to get his powers. He's on a Justice League mission. Batman's like, Superman, use your heat vision. I can't find a token around here. So yeah, I actually had to grab this token to allow me to use super breath. And even when you have super breath, this mission still sucks because, like I said, there's no stop button on Superman. So he will just fucking float past a tornado, and then you got to spend spent ages repositioning him. And, you know, even if you start shooting your super breath at the tornado, there is no guarantee that it's even going to be in the same place by the time you would be able to get rid of it. So yeah, this level is a pain in the ass, but reaching an underwater checkpoint, we've finished the first level. We enter level 2, where we're going to be learning little flying level here is actually the best type of mission in the game. So level 2 begins with our journey into the indoor sections, which are infuriating to say the absolute bare minimum. Surface level fucking nil. The general story of the map is shown on a cutscene. Marla, who is an S-Task villain, has planted bombs in the Metropolis Dam, and we have to stop him. Also, yeah, I know, it's kind of nonsensical to critique the plot of this game, but what I can't get over is that all the villains in this game are implied to be the real ones. They're just transported into this virtual world. So why are they committing crimes? And why is Superman trying to stop them? It's virtual Superman. Virtual Metropolis doesn't need virtual running water. It's okay. But getting down to the actual meat of the level, I've got to say, most people go, oh, Superman 64, is that the game with the rings? Dude, seriously, this game only has a bad rap of the rings, probably because no one's gotten past the ring levels to play this piece of shit. Like, it's bad. First up, Superman's on-foot controls are tank controls, which honestly, I can fuck with that a bit, you know. Silent Hill, Resident Evil, some of my favorite games have used tank controls. But it seems that Superman 64 has input delay ingrained into its code. It's not even about the lag of the flying levels. You ask Superman to do something and he'll get around to it, no promises. But this lack of agility really starts to sting here because we run into our first non-human enemies. And this is where we learn just how super Superman is. Yeah, a good old explosion hurt our boy, and as much as I hate to say it, Superman 64W, this is a totally canon DCAU Superman moment.
It doesn't take much, does it?
So yeah, rare Superman 64W? Not really, because, you know, it's actually not very fun to play as a Superman made of tissue paper, and it only gets worse because this level is downright perplexing. First, you have to find this key card, which allows you to interact with this computer. Never told to you, by the way, you have to figure that out. But after that, you meet Marla, who says Superman's got to save some workers, but to get to them, you have to drain this area that's full of water, and to do that, you have to find this lever and pull it, which allows you to go down and find the workers, who then tell you that you've got to stop the bombs that Marla planted. But after this, we head back to the room we met Marla in, and she's still there, except it's time for a boss fight. The only problem is that this is Superman 64, and by this game's standards, a boss fight is just an enemy with a lot of health. So the whole thing is just a lot of... So taking down Marla, we have to head to the computer again to unlock these two doors, and finding two bombs, we use our freeze breath to freeze them solid. By the way, to even get freeze breath, you need a key card in the flooded area, which automatically unlocks these rooms with the power token inside. And yeah, upon freezing the bombs, that's level complete. By the way, none of what I just listed off is ever explained to the player or even really hinted at, so you have to figure that out all by yourself. It is horrible. My brain hurt playing this game. But before we move on to the next level, I kind of want to put this level under a microscope because I think it really encapsulates what Superman 64 does wrong, and that is the gameplay loop doesn't really fit Superman as a character. I mean, why do people play superhero games? Well, it's to experience what it's like to be a superhero, which means you need to design your missions around what that superhero would do to achieve whatever objective they need to. The problem here is that Superman is not a computers hero. There's barely a time when he needs to use computers. And yeah, like Marla says, we can't save these workers without draining the water because smashing through this door would flood the room. That's totally fair, but what about these doors? Superman isn't Doom Guy. If he needs to open a door, he'll punch through it. Like, some games can be fine providing no information or hints to the player if the player can get into the protagonist's head and act as they would, but the way Superman as a character operates in this game is so off base from how he would actually do things that it makes the entire game really confusing. But anyways, moving on, we enter level 3, which is another flying level, and I don't have a ton to say about this area except this is where I had to do my first restart of the game because while flying around, Ladies and gentlemen, that's crash number 1. And since I didn't have a save pack for my N64, that was 2 hours and 41 minutes of progress I lost. But you know, I'm used to setbacks when I film my videos, so I jumped back in, and if nothing else, I was more experienced with the game. So I made it back to the dam level within 35 minutes. Unfortunately though, during the fight with Marla, I died, and while grieving over the fact that I had to do the whole level again, the game crashed and decided I had to do the whole game again. So yeah, at this point it was clear to me that my strategy of marathoning my way through an infamously unstable game without saving was not really gonna work. So I finally made the pilgrimage to my local retro game store. And you might be wondering, Brandos, why did it take you so long to go and get this save pack? Well, get this. I live in Australia, and at least in the city I live in, you have to drive past 50 fucking hardware stores before you'll even find one single game store, let alone a retro game store. So my best retro store was like a full hour's drive from my place, and the car park of the shopping center it's in is one of the 9 circles of hell. I swear, whatever road rules anyone follows in Australia, they don't apply in that car park. People are driving on the wrong fucking side of the road, pedestrians will see you backing out of a parking spot and walk in front of your car. One time I was parking and a woman looked me dead in the eye and put her shopping cart in the spot I was in the process of parking in. Bottom line, I've got to mentally prepare to go retro game shopping, and I was just looking for a way out. You guys got to understand. But getting back on the grind, I had the ability to save now, which let me zoom through all the previous stages, and I eventually arrived at level 4, LexCorp. Now this level is one of the better ones simply because A, it's short, and B, it's kind of fun. Pretty much when you get into LexCorp, there's like 20 guys in the lobby for you to beat up. After this, we go around completing a few different puzzles like this one where Lex traps us in a room of kryptonite. And I gotta say, the radiation on that thing must be intense because this room makes the N64 run at like 7 FPS. There's also this other puzzle where you have to use these computers to spell Luther's name. And when I was playing this part, I had a couple of friends over. So upon completing the puzzle, we were all celebrating when yep, another crash. And this time it's because I stood still for too long. But making it to Lex's office, we come face to face with Brainiac, and I wasn't really taking any chances here, so I lasered him to death. And the animation that plays when you beat him is hilarious. Like, he stops getting damaged, hosts up, and then starts walking towards you. Heading over to Lex's desk, we can find some pieces of paper that tell us where all our friends are being held, and exiting the building, we enter another flying stage, yay. Now, by this point, I thought I was pretty hot shit at flying, but during this section, they start moving the rings, and sometimes these rings clip into the ground, bro. It took me over an hour to get past this section, because there's an area where you have 5 minutes to go through the rings, and at the end of the trail, you get a challenge where you have to protect 2 skateboarders from 3 robots, specifically the type that stuns Superman when he hits them, 1 tornado, 1 mine dropper, and a fucking car that will run over one of these skaters. Mind you, you've got to take them all out before the skaters get attacked. Any health damage they take, and you have to start the entire 5-minute section again. Do you hear me, viewer? Again! So the next level is called The Warehouse, and the best way I could describe it would be the dam level on steroids, because this whole thing is find a key card, unlock this gate, find another key card, use this computer. The whole level is so confusing. I barely understood what my IGN guide was trying to tell me. The baseline here is that we have to rescue Lois, who's being held hostage by Metallo, and after beating him up, we free her. Lois then says she's going to go switch off the production of Lex's robots, and running off, she immediately gets captured again. So saving her again, she then says we can leave. But that is not the end of the level, because it's time for an escort mission. And the crazy thing is, Superman 64 takes this infamous objective type and somehow makes it worse than the baseline concept already is. That's impressive, dude. First up, Lois walks slower than Superman's slowest walking speed. Second up, you need to be very close to Lois in order for her to continue walking. And third, if you go just a little bit too far away from her at any time, an enemy will spawn and you'll have 15 seconds to save her. And as you can imagine, this doesn't make it very easy to actually protect Lois on your way out. So you might be wondering, how are we meant to keep her safe? Well, official mechanic, by the way, if you get into trouble, you need to use your freeze breath on Lois to turn her into an ice block. Like, I don't know how WB was not okay with Superman flying underwater, but freezing Lois into a solid fucking ice brick to protect her from bullets was like, oh, that's a-okay. That's a Superman moment right there. But anyways, we get to the exit where Metallo is waiting for him, and after feeding him a knuckle sandwich, that's level complete. Exiting the facility though, we enter another flying level, and I hate to say this, but by this point in the game, these levels became the good ones. You know, these levels that had me rage quitting and all up in arms earlier are now the lesser of two evils. The indoor levels are quite literally that bad. I mean, you run around these things not knowing if you're about to get put on a 10-second timer, or if some insanely powerful enemy is in the next room, or if you're missing some power-up token that you actually will be needing. It's so stressful playing these levels because unlike the actual flying ones, there's no checkpoints. You fuck up and you've lost like 30 minutes of progress, which makes it worse considering how bad the game is at conveying information. So you'll often find yourself not even knowing what you did wrong. So that's all to say that these flight levels are kind of chill. There's nothing you really need to do except get from point A to B in a timely manner. But arriving at the next level, the latest threat Superman needs to stop comes in the form of Darkseid. And this whole scenario is hilarious because all these villains are yet again implied to be the real deal, right? And you know what Darkseid has done? You know what his plan is? He's kidnapped Jimmy Olsen and he's holding him hostage in the Daily Planet's underground car park where he's planted a bomb. Like, that seems a bit low stakes for the manifestation of evil, but you know, who am I to judge, right? But what's even better is that your objective for the level is to find Darkseid, knock him out, and then take him to the cops. Can you imagine being the cop that had to take him to like lock up for booking? Like, you're just driving your patrol car, and then in the back, Darkseid's just... But funny scenario aside, this level sucks. It is just way too big. Even the N64 agrees with me, the way it drops to 5 frames per sometimes. It doesn't even make sense for this place to be this big. It's the Daily Planet's parking garage, bro. Why does it have a nuclear reactor in 3 floors? I mean, those were just some of the questions I was asking myself as I flew around aimlessly for 25 minutes. As it turns out, I couldn't find Jimmy anywhere because I had to punch this random brick wall to reveal the room he was in. This pisses me off, right? Because this game teaches you that whatever Superman would do in a situation, that's not going to happen here. All of a sudden, and without any hints, they just drop breakable walls into the game and hide the main objective behind it. It's like the game is actively and maliciously fucking with you at this point. But freeing Jimmy, he tells us where Darkseid's bomb is, and once we defuse it, the big man himself shows up. So lasering him into unconsciousness, we then pick up Darkseid, and I don't know what's meant to happen at this part, but the level just automatically completed for me here, so you know, I'll take my wins where I can get it. But after this, it's back to the rings for another 40 minutes, and making it to Star Labs, we begin the best level of the game. And this one's only top of the list because it makes sense. We find Professor Hamilton, who's trapped underground, and he pretty much tells us everything we need to do every step of the way. It's like a breath of fresh air. Can this guy be in every level? Also, we defeat the villain of the level, Parasite, in a pretty Superman-y way by baiting him into a containment cell instead of actually fighting him. You know, the level just works. There's no fat here that needs to be trimmed. It's just solid. And that's all I've got to say because even this game's best level is kind of just mediocre at best and kind of boring, to be honest. So moving on, we fly through another 40 minutes of rings and reach the third last level, the train station. And this one pisses me off. The background info is that we're here to stop Lex's goons from taking over the city, which, does it matter? We're in a simulation a simulation run by Lex Luthor. He can have his fake city if he wants it. But how it goes down is we spawn in, fly to the other end of the map, Lex then blows up the tunnel, and we have to try to leave through the way we came in, which once again, why are we trying to leave if we're here to stop Lex's goon troops? Yeah, no, you're right, it doesn't matter. But making it back to the spawn area, Lex blows up that tunnel too, and as we turn around to go the other way, we meet a civilian who needs some help. So we go and beat up the robot crabs that were chasing him, and upon doing that, he says he'll show us another way out, which is awfully nice of him, but I kind of wish he didn't offer, because this is the start of another escort mission. Yeah! Except we're not just guiding a slow-ass NPC this time. We have to guide this guy down a tunnel that takes Superman nearly 30 seconds to fly down at top speed. For a little translation, that's really fucking far. And this is where I learned the pain of this game's escort missions. Like, I got lucky with Lois and I didn't have to restart, but here, over the course of an hour, I failed this escort mission 3 times. Twice from this guy getting shot, and the 3rd time I was being really careful. I was using freeze breath on this guy. If I even saw a threatening pixel, I was locked in. But I started to get a little impatient, and I found that if I walked into him, I could actually push him and speed him up. But in my hubris, I forgot that Superman 64 is not a game that you play. It's a game that plays you. And by that I mean... the NPC fell through the fucking floor and died! This was enough to make me rage quit, and I didn't reattempt till later that night, where I found that you don't even have to do the escort mission if you simply fly over the guy, go to the central terminal, and beat up everyone. And yes, it did feel quite good ignoring one of the game's bullshit objectives for once. But as always, for every good emotion you feel while playing Superman 64, you better believe it won't stay that way. Because ending this level, we get a text box saying, "You destroyed all the enemies in this town, but you need to face Brainiac in the hard skill level to bring back your friends to the real world." And clicking the button, yes, you have completed Superman 64, or at least as much as you're allowed to complete on the normal mode, because Superman 64 is actually one of those games where you have to play it on the hardest difficulty level to actually play the full game. Now I was distraught. At this point, I had been playing the game on and off for like weeks. It felt like I was tensing a muscle when I played this thing. I could only bear it for a limited amount of time. And after all the rage and frustration, to be told I needed to play this game again on a harder difficulty just to see the ending, it destroyed me. And as I sat dumbfounded on my couch, considering what I should do, I thought, what would Superman do? And I realized something. Superman wouldn't give up. He'd see this thing through. He'd play the game 500 times if he had to. The only thing is, I'm not Superman, I'm V4 Brandos, and I didn't really want to do that. So the next thing I thought of was, what would Lex Luthor do? And after a moment, everything became clear. I was gonna cheat. Pretty much, I started a new game on Superman mode, then I used the skip level cheat to go all the way to the 2nd last level, which is just another one of those ring flying levels, except it is grade A dog shit. The devs knew this was their last chance to make Superman fly through 1 billion rings, so they give you a 10-minute timer and just tell you to get going. And you might be thinking, Brandos, 10 minutes is tons of time. What's the problem? Well, the issue is they don't actually tell you where to go. You can follow these rings all the way to the exit, but here's the catch. There's like 5 different exits, and all of them make you fail if you run into them, except if you find the real one. And you can only find the real one if you go through all the rings, except you can't find the next ring you need to go through, because in Superman mode, they remove the arrow that points to your next available ring. So you just spend 10 minutes flying around all of Metropolis trying to find the next ring you need to go through, not knowing if you've even got enough time to get through all the rings and get to the exit. So to be honest, I totally skipped this level, and you can call it a skill issue, but I spent 1 hour and 20 minutes trying to find my way out of this place, and I couldn't. Also, I felt like at this point, the Pandora's box of cheats has been opened, so like, what was one more, you know? If the game doesn't respect my time, why am I giving it any more? But this leads us to the final level of Superman 64, Brainiac's Starship. Now, if there's one thing to say about this level, it's long, it's boring, and I hate it. In it, you have to create a device to get everyone back to the real world. Unfortunately, in classic Superman 64 fashion, this device has been split up into 11 pieces. And you have to go around Brainiac's fucking starship, finding all these pieces and putting it back together. This whole level is a pretty great showcase of Superman 64's worst elements, because it really is just pick this up, interact with that, open this door, back and forth and back and forth. It's clear the devs wanted to make the final level a challenge, and they did this by including every single mechanic they made for this game. But I persevered for a majority of this level until something tragic happened. I was like 2 pieces away from assembling this stupid 11-piece device, and I was really low on health, and I decided, you know what, fuck it. I've cheated before, I need to replenish. So I went to put in the health cheat, and I accidentally put in the skip level cheat. Now, if you're truly interested, this level devolves into yet another escort mission, except this time you have to escort everybody you've rescued in the game. But eventually you get everybody out, you blow up Brainiac's ship, and then you're freed from the simulation. And then we get this absolute cinematic masterpiece of a final cutscene. And that was Superman 64. Now, before we move on to my thoughts on the game, we're actually not done, because Superman 64 actually has a multiplayer mode. And if you didn't know that, it's probably because no one has ever been able to convince their friends to play this piece of shit with them. But since I'm such a convincing guy, I got 2 other friends to give this a shot with me, and well, it's what you expect from Superman 64 multiplayer. Overall, there's 2 modes you can play, race mode and battle mode. In battle mode, you fly around in these ships controlled by different characters, and some of these picks are bizarre, by the way. You could be Darkseid, which is hilarious. I think Darkseid is the only one actually having fun in this game. Like, he's not taking this thing seriously at all. He's planting bombs in the Daily Planet, taking hostages, flying around in a little spaceship and shooting people. He's having like a holiday. But then there are such classics as the Lex Luthor Goon or Metallo, which, to be honest, this is very in character for him. You then have Brainiac, who's got an absolute hilarious ship. This shit is custom. It looks exactly like his fucking suit. He's been planning for the day when he has to go into battle in a very undersized spaceship. However, I can't help but feel that this was a missed opportunity to use Brainiac's flying chair that he's always flying around in. It's even in this game. After that, we've got Mercy Graves, Lex Luthor's henchman, and I really wouldn't mind this inclusion if it weren't for the fact that Lex Luthor himself isn't a playable character, which is pretty crazy, but what can I expect from a game that doesn't include Superman as a playable character in the multiplayer mode of his own game? But jumping into battle mode, it's really just all the players getting dropped into one of the levels, and then you shoot the others till they die, and whoever's left wins. Easy as that. It's pretty hard to control because the whole thing is in first person, and the ships everyone's controlling are actually incredibly tiny for some reason. So it's usually hard to even find one another, to even get into a fight. The racing mode, on the other hand, isn't too much better. Like, when I saw all these characters in their stupid little rockets, I was kind of expecting this to be some sort of Mario Kart thing, which would legitimately improve the game for me. Like, going through rings in single player? Ugh, gross, no. But racing through rings with your friends while you're playing as Darkseid and Metallo? That sounds fucking wicked, bro. But it is actually not that. Despite having all these maps that were already made and filled with ring courses, they don't even do that. Pretty much one person creates rings and is drastically slowed down, and the other players have to fly through the rings and shoot each other? I'm not really sure, because the tutorial screen didn't really make it clear what the objective of this race mode is, which is pretty wild, because when you go to player racing mode, isn't the expectation that all the players are racing to a certain point and whoever gets there first wins? Overall, it's not fun, it's incredibly confusing, and if you get the misfortune of being picked to be the ringmaker, it is a huge chore because your ship starts moving like a snail. It sucks. You know what the funny thing is, by the way? I only found out that this game had multiplayer after I'd written the script and filmed a little bit of the video, and I was kind of scared that this game was going to have peak multiplayer and I was going to have to change the score, but You know, now I see that that was never going to happen. The multiplayer in this game is much like the rest of it. It's confusing, hard to control, and quite honestly, boring. But yeah, that's Superman 64. Before we wrap up this review, I do legitimately want to hear what your thoughts are down in the comments below. One of my favorite things about making these videos is that even if it is just for a brief moment, I love how a community of a long dead game can just flicker back to life and start talking again. So I want to hear what you think about the game. Is Superman 64 as bad as you thought it would be? Does it live up to the infamy it has amassed over the years? A lot of people know about this game. Not many people have the first-hand experience of knowing how the full thing plays out. So let me know what you think about it. But me, personally, I think Superman 64 is horrendous. It is without a doubt one of the worst games I've ever had the displeasure of playing. It's glitchy, laggy, boring, frustrating, stupidly long, and it's not even that I'm a Superman fan and I'm disappointed in this game. I feel like any hope I had that this was gonna be a good Superman game died in the first 15 minutes of me playing it. This is legitimately just a bad game. There's no substance, there's no fun, there's no real story. Baseline, the game lacks a soul. It could have had one if WB let Titus do their thing, but you know, WB isn't exactly known for being a hands-off company. You know, this is just a blunder at the end of the day. A handful of loose concepts and rushed elements slapped together in a guise of a finished game. It's truly a non-game, something that was hindered by the publisher so much that the devs didn't even have the opportunity to inject any real passion into it. And why would they want to? With the level of micromanaging Titus was under, it's a miracle plugging in S64's cartridge doesn't just load a picture of the middle finger with the text saying, "Fuck WB." At the end of the day, this isn't a game. It's a piece of shovelware dog shit brought about by suits who've never played a game in their life and simply wanted to feed their ego. Titus should hold no blame for this travesty. It wasn't their fault. They didn't set out to make this thing, they were made to. And because of that, because of everything we've talked about today, Superman 64 is getting the lowest rating I have ever assigned to any video game on this channel. Superman 64 is a big, fat, well-earned 0 out of 10. This game truly is my new baseline for bad games. I've never touched anything quite as bad, and I really hope I never do again. You know guys, through my playthrough of Superman 64, every time I wanted to quit or give up, I thought about what Superman would do. Every time I wanted to put my controller through the screen or say fuck this video, I thought about Superman's values and how he never gives up. He always finds another way. But you know guys, I'm not Superman, and there's some things that he would do, like finishing a video game legitimately without using cheats, that I just don't want to do. But right now, when I think about what Superman would do in this situation, I think the answer is pretty clear. And in this particular case, I'm more than happy to live up to the standard. Superman 64, for the thousands of disappointed kids who got you for Christmas, for the hundreds of thousands of hours you've siphoned from humanity, for the stain you've left on the Superman brand, I sentence you to the Phantom Zone.
Time to waste. Then there's no 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 time to waste.
Now, Man of Steel was a game that was released in 2002, and it interestingly ties into the comic storyline that was happening in Superman at the time. In a comic story called Superman City of Tomorrow, Brainiac 13 from the 64th century tries to take over Metropolis and upgrades it with a ton of tech, truly turning it into the City of Tomorrow. Now, Superman Man of Steel takes place shortly after these events, and in it, Brainiac 13 returns to Metropolis to take all of his tech back, and Superman has got to stop him. Now, I don't really have any development information on this game to share today. To me, it sounds like it went as smoothly as it could. So what I will talk about before we get stuck into this thing is what this game was trying to achieve. See, if you were to flip through a gaming magazine around 2002, you probably would have seen this advertisement. And it reads, as close as you'll come to being him.
Now this is a very low bar, admittedly, when you're sharing history with the likes of Superman 64, but when I started this series, I had a wish list for everything I wanted in a Superman game, something I could measure the game off of. And to be honest, I didn't talk about it last episode because Superman 64 never really had a chance at ticking any of these boxes. But starting now, I think it's reasonable to go in with some expectations. I mean, I'm getting promised that this game is as close as I can get to being him. So what does being him mean? So we'll divide this up into 3 categories. All up, Superman needs to be powerful. And I won't complicate this too much, but he's got to feel faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, and able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Now, nothing too crazy. Just the absolute baseline we're looking for is a playable Superman that feels tough. Some extra little bonus things here will be, I want to be able to move around Metropolis. I want to be able to walk around the streets. I want to be able to save people. On the story end, Superman is a character with an expansive cast of supporting characters and villains. The reason comics are such a great source of stories is that you can follow a character for literally decades of their life. You can see them in pretty much every situation there is. You can really get to know these characters. So all I'm really asking is, get the characters right. How hard can that be, huh? And that doesn't include Superman because he's his own checkbox. I really don't think there's a character that's as consistently misunderstood as Superman. Batman might be a close contender, Mr. I beat my adopted kids, but people consistently get Supes wrong. He's not some goody two-shoes that's absolutely perfect, and he's also not some naive strongman with only a thread connecting him to humanity. Superman, or more Clark Kent, is just a man with extraordinary powers who was raised with strong morals. Part of Superman as a character is the struggle within himself. Think of if you or I were born with superpowers, how easily it would be to use those powers selfishly. In fact, as a younger man, Clark played football, which, you know, being all these things, might have given him a little bit of an advantage. But Pa Kent got Clark to quit because he saw it as a misuse of his power. And that's what Superman's all about. It's his ability to do anything that gives him absolute agency over his life. The challenge comes from deciding what he won't do. And the most super thing about Superman is how he makes those decisions. The restraint he shows, the humanity he shows, the attention he pays to things, no matter how small they could seem to a man like him. Superman's greatest powers lies up here, and how every day he uses his abilities to help others instead of himself. That's why he's a beacon of hope and inspiration. It's not because he's an all-wise space Jesus, it's because he's a regular person like you or me. And if one person can be given the keys to the world and not choose to sit atop a throne, couldn't we all resist that temptation? Couldn't we all be a better version of ourselves? Couldn't we all bring about a better tomorrow together? That's the beauty of Superman as a character, and it is absolutely vital that you understand these concepts before you go and write a game that stars Superman. So yeah, the game has to get Superman as a character right. Finally, we gotta talk music. Superman is once again a character which you cannot fuck up the music for. And I say not as in it's not possible to fuck up the music for him, I'm saying you're not allowed. Because Superman's got aura, right? When he's fighting someone or he's pulling some totally bullshit move to save the day, you can feel some invisible orchestra going crazy around him. Because he's the ultimate hero. This shit is meant to be epic. Baseline, you've got to have grade A music for Superman. It's got to be loud, bombastic, intense, and also inspiring. If Superman's backing track is lame, it's going to make everything he's doing seem lame too. So yeah, that's my total wish list for a Superman game. That's what you have to get right in order for a project like this to succeed. It's just a shame that the developers of this game seemingly traveled forwards in time, stole this list, and used it as a checkbox of things not to do when making their game. So jumping in, the game picks up with Lois and Clark walking around Metropolis, and holy shit, the voice acting is bad.
That's just the farm boy in me. You know, if the rocket ship that brought me to Earth as a baby hadn't landed in Kansas,
you'd still have incredible abilities far beyond that of mortal men.
But suddenly the whole city starts glitching out and Brainiac 13 returns. Clark then gets souped up, and flying off, we jump right into gameplay. Now starting off, our first objective we're called to is to stop some robots from attacking a building, and this is where we learn all of Superman's controls, which yeah, they're not great. Like starting with flying, just basing it on responsiveness alone, it's a world better than Superman 64. The only problem is with the mapping. For some reason, the left stick moves you left, right, as well as up and down, while the right stick rotates you and sends you backwards and forward. Like, what? You were so close to getting it right. Just make the right stick control rotation as well as up and down, and then the left stick can be backwards, forwards, left and right. How hard is that? It feels like you're wrestling with Superman on which way to go. I felt at times that plunging my hands through the screen would yield better results at controlling the guy than actually using the controller. On the combat side though, it's nothing insane. Brainiac's robots are all vulnerable to different powers. Yellow drones need to get beaten up, purple drones lasered, green drones frozen. Thankfully we do get a lock-on feature here, so we're not left at the mercy of the awful controls. Right now you might be thinking, this is all sounding very okay. Beating up robots, it's sounding very Superman-y. Despite the janky controls, we're off to a good start. And that's fair, it's the second level of the game that makes you realize what you're really getting into.
Great Krypton! I've got to extinguish those fires before they spread. A little freeze breath should do the trick.
So jumping in, our first objective is to put out some fires, and then we fight some robots, and then we need to put out some other fires, then we fight some more robots. And just as putting out fires and fighting robots starts getting old, we get another objective to relocate a communications tower. But the tutorial to pick it up is on screen for about 5 seconds, so I did not get this the first time round, which isn't a bad thing because we get a first look at the hilarious game over screens. And these things are great because they're so stupid. Superman, the beacon of hope and pushing forwards, fails at one objective in this game, and then we get a cutscene of him falling to his knees and face palming. Also, each time you die, you hear a voice in the background describing exactly how you failed. It's brutal.
Brainiac 13's robots have defeated Superman. The towers were not placed in time. All emergency communication signals have been lost. The fires were not extinguished in time.
Superman has failed to put out the fire. 1 billion have now died. But after finally figuring out how to lift this stupid tower, the level comes to the end and we get this cutscene that's just a fever dream. First, the voice acting on Superman and Jimmy Olsen is horrible. The music is too loud, as well as like really out of place. Just have a look, you'll see.
It's not safe for you to be here, Jimmy.
I'd rather face those bots instead of going back to the chief without pictures. Metal left over from those things is identical to the composition of the Brainiac bots you fought before, when Brainiac upgraded Metropolis and nearly...
I remember, Jim. I also remember that I was barely able to beat Brainiac 13 before.
So after this apparently useless cutscene, we're thrust into mission 3, where we're gonna play a little game, right? What do you think we're gonna be doing in this level? You've got 5 seconds, legitimately, tell it to me, tell it to the screen. What do you think we're doing in this level? Okay, if you said fighting robots and putting out fires, you're pretty much right. We start the level by once again fighting Brainiac's robots, and after that we're told a bank just got robbed and set on fire. So we head over there, and I failed this objective so many times because there is so little breathing room for mistakes in this game. You have to fly over to the bank and then expertly weave around the building, blowing out fires. And I'm pretty sure you only have like 25 seconds to do this. But once again, the controls are so shit. It's really hard to move quickly enough. Eventually I did it though, and our next objective is pretty fresh. We have to stop the bank robbers from escaping, and upon taking them to the cops, it's revealed that they planted a bomb in a random car for some reason. So we have to go to this area full of cars, and here you're meant to use your X-ray vision to look inside the cars, but if you guess the wrong one and use your freeze breath on it, you fail the whole mission. Superman's like, oh no, I freezed the wrong car, I failed. What? But that's about it for this level, and you might be surprised to learn that everything we've covered so far has happened in the space of an hour and a half. For a little translation, there's a lot of nothing happening considering the amount of time we've been playing this game. It's just been 3 levels of putting out fires and beating up robots and picking up radio towers. By this point, it's starting to get a little bit old. It sucks because on one hand, this is kind of accurate to the character. When there's a big citywide crisis, Superman is non-stop helping people, saving people, battling enemies. Unfortunately, that doesn't really add up to fun, especially when you put on such strict time limits as this game does. It's weird, but in some ways, this game does feel a little bit like an updated Superman 64, the way that it doesn't give you a second to breathe. In that game, you would be flying around and then get a 20-second time limit mission shoved in your face. And even when you completed that mission, it's right back to the time trial rings. That's what this feels like. Every time I complete an objective, there's another another one I need to get on right now. Even in the fighting sections, they have time limits since Brainiac's robots are usually attacking a building. So every level is just this exhausting, stressful sprint. Level 4 stops the game from becoming a complete slog though, as in it, we follow a train that's run out of control. And throughout the level, we need to get stuff off the tracks and put out fires. As well as that, we also need to protect it from Brainiac's forces. And yeah, I am praising a glorified escort mission here, but it feels Superman-y. You know, these obstacles are just as much a time limit as your regular fire mission, but they feel real. The time limit is the train. It's not some clock ticking down. After all this though, Superman decides to go pay Lex Luthor a visit and just talk some shit. I don't know. Superman is like, hey, are you involved in this? Lex says, no. Then Superman says, okay, but I'm watching.
I'll be watching you. Remember that.
Remember it? I'm counting on it.
What are we doing here? Is this like superhero bingo? I feel like we're hitting all the cliches. Meanwhile though, Brainiac decides to make Superman's life harder and frees Bizarro plus his clones. The cutscene then shows off some of the worst voice acting this game has to offer.
After a long time asleep, me tired. Bizarro clones am pretty. Me have new cape and nameplate. Bizarro ugly. Now, what me do now?
So with us entering the next section of the game, the main enemies have now become Bizarro clones, which are an absolute pain to fight. These guys pretty much can't be hurt until they start taunting, and when they do attack, they spam this fire breath mode that lags the fuck out of the Xbox. But what is there really to say? Once again, we're flying around, protecting buildings, putting out fires, picking up shit and putting it down. It's just more of what we've been doing. The good news is that it only lasts for one level, and the next brings us head to head with Bizarro himself, which head to head probably isn't the best description because he spends most of the mission flying away from you. And get this, setting fires that we have to put out. Like, holy shit, there are more ways to save people than to just put out fires. Did anyone playtest this? Was there an arsonist on the dev team that would burn people if they complained about how many fires were in the game? It's ridiculous. But the Bizarro boss fight is pretty quick. When I say that this game is very reminiscent of Superman 64, I'm talking about shit like this. Because in that game, you beat the bosses by punching them and nothing else. And in this game, guess what you do?
Me and hero of Metropolis. Bizarro, I'm saving world now.
Finally ending the fight, we get another cutscene where two of the worst voice actors in the game go head to head to see who can play their character worse.
Bizarro not bad. Bizarro helped Superman.
I know, Bizarro. And now some men from Star Labs are coming to help you and the others.
Oh, good. That make me sad. Me going to wake up for a little while now. Hello.
After this, we're thrust into a few nighttime levels, which I have nothing to say about. It's more filler, more beating up robots, more fires, blah, 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 skip. The next day, though, Superman decides he's had enough of fighting fires and goes straight for Brainiac. And all we really do here is complete a puzzle. Superman then discovers that he can't even touch Brainiac 13, which, not to be like a comics nerd or anything, right? But Superman, you've fought this guy before. You should know you can't actually touch them. But flying off, Superman meets with Steel to strategize, and he tells us that we need to go to Warworld in order to find some tech that could take down Brainiac. So Superman travels to Warworld, and arriving at a prison, his first idea here is nuts.
Maybe if I help the prisoners escape, they can help me find the disruptor.
What? So Mongol is a bad guy, right? He's a dictator, he's evil, but are you sure you should be pulling a prison break, Superman? There's gotta be at least a few people in there that deserve to be there, right? But working our way through the level, they did not switch up the formula for Warworld. It is still one boring objective after the other. This level is still a bit more fun though, since it's more fighting than putting out fires, which would be awesome if the combat wasn't hell-bent on putting me to sleep. But luckily we don't have to put up with it for too long, since we meet a prisoner in an interesting outfit who tells us where to find this magical piece of tech we're after. And once we grab it, we go to leave Warworld, except Mongol catches up to us, who's not happy we sprung his prisoners. Mongol then fires his ship's nuclear reactor at Earth. We then have to heat vision it for a few minutes, and once we destroy it, the level just ends. And Mongol just gives up. He's like, oh, okay, no, next time then, Superman, I'll get you next time.
Well done, Superman. You have perhaps won this battle, but the war will yet be won.
The game then transitions over to one of the worst cutscenes in the entire game.
Metallo? Stay back, Jimmy.
Lois Lane? Hey, as if this day wasn't lucky enough already.
Hey, what's with the King Kong fixation? Get over it, and put me down right now.
I hope B-13's interference didn't fry this thing. And I sure hope you can hear me, Big Blue.
Just the randomness of it, the missing sound effects, the voice acting, the fact that Jimmy and Lois couldn't see this massive fucking robot right in front of them. It's painful. Launching into gameplay though, I saw Metallo and I was like, cool dude, big robot. How can you fuck this up? Well, Man of Steel finds a way, let me say that. First up, Metallo's voice acting is fucking horrible. I wouldn't think in a million years he would sound like this.
Oh well, if it ain't Superman. Pop quiz, Soupy. Do you save the day or disarm the bombs I set?
But that's not the worst part. What sucks is our mission objective. Metallo has planted bombs all over Metropolis and we have to go freeze them, fight some robots, and then after that, Metallo says he's planted more bombs. And then guess what we have to do after that? Fight more robots. I'm going insane. Just talking about this game is boring as fuck. Although once we get back on Metallo's trail, it does get switched up since now we have to chase him as he destroys stuff. And this sequence is really different from the rest of the game because
now Metallo's setting fires too.
Just kidding, bro runs around setting fucking fires. There's a little bit of civilian saving, but it's mostly fires. Entering a cutscene though, I don't know if Metallo is meant to say something here, but his mouth moves and nothing comes out. In fact, this is pretty much audio problems, the cutscene, because look at this. The sound is not edited here. I don't know what's going on. Now getting down to the boss fight, I'm sure there's a legit strategy for beating Metallo, but I found a pretty janky one where it turns out the Metallo's NPC can't hit upwards. So if you position Superman directly above him and just keep punching him, he can't do anything. But defeating Metallo, Superman goes to speak to Steel, who's revealed to have been taken over by Brainiac. And I mean, what am I meant to say? After Steel takes off, we undergo the process we've been going through all this game. A new boss shows up, the map becomes populated with his minions, and you bet there's gonna be some fires to put out. And once we beat Steel, we give him the Warworld tech and witness the most unintelligible cutscene ever created.
Warworld Disruptor, I never doubted you. It's going to take me at least an hour to analyze this technology, not counting the conversion process.
And what was that? So afterwards, Superman heads back to LexCorp for some reason, I don't know, and Lex says he needs Superman's help in defending some satellites from Brainiac's mothership, and this level is pretty cool. The battle arena is space, so it's obviously massive, and I think without having all the buildings in the way, the combat is a little alright. The satellites also look like little watchtowers from Justice League, which I also like. But let me get this down straight. It's still not a great level, because once again, we're defending something from a bunch of robots, like we've been doing for the past 5 hours now. Also, I haven't mentioned this yet since the combat in this game turned my brain to slop and I can't really recall anything about it, but Superman is weak as hell in this game, dude. Whenever you get into a conversation with someone about the idea of a Superman game, the inevitable topic will shift to how would they make his invincibility work? Well, do you know what the dev's answer to that question was? They didn't come up with one because they didn't think of it, they just ignored it. Superman is very invincible in this game, so these fights really suck because it's not even really about having a back and forth with the enemies, it's about ending the fight before you die. And the only way to do that is hit all the Dance Dance Revolution moves and match all the superpowers to the right colors. There's no strategy. That's why when I say this game is boring, you need to believe me. They spam the same scenario multiple times every single level, and the solution to that scenario is always exactly the same. So yeah, the whole level is just what we've been doing for the whole game, but it's in space, so there's only a certain level of enthusiasm I can feel here. But after defending the satellites, we storm Brainiac's ship. Once inside, we set it to blow, and upon escaping, the cutscene that plays here is fucking hilarious. Superman really locks in for the explosion here. Now, I don't really know why, but after this, Superman heads to Lex's tower, and I don't know if I missed something, but Superman is convinced that Lex has double-crossed him here. And Luthor just admits to it? What's going on?
You double-crossed me.
Yes, I did.
But Superman flies off and meets with Steel again, who says that the War World tech won't be enough to stop Brainiac, and that they need Kryptonian technology, which they can only get from the Phantom Zone. So heading there, we're told to protect Steel, and yes, this is an escort mission, because Superman games are just a fucking dumping ground for the worst gameplay mechanics ever conceived, I guess. I'll be fair though, and say the Phantom Zone does look wicked. I am, however, not a fan of the ever-moving filter that's placed on the screen. This level gave me the worst motion sickness. Anyways, the whole thing is pretty much about following Steel around as he scans for tech, and we have to defend him from Phantom Zone prisoners, which also look pretty awesome. But enough complimenting this game, because Steel straight up needs more health. If you even leave him alone for 20 seconds, the motherfucker dies, bro. And the funny thing here is that when you fail the mission, this voice line plays.
Superman? Superman?
And it even plays if Steel dies too.
Superman? Superman?
It's like he's taunting you from the grave or something. But yeah, after we find the Kryptonian technology, Cyborg Superman shows up, and you can't hear a thing he's saying.
Now you're in my domain, where you'll stay forever, knowing for all eternity that I'm on the outside.
And the strat for this guy is to pretty much laser him. There's seriously not much else. And if you die here, I think you get arguably the funniest death screen in the game.
Superman is not able to escape the Phantom Zone in time and is forever trapped in its nightmarish worlds.
Damn, man, why are these things so intense? All game, every time you fail the tiniest objective, you hear something like, Superman failed to save a cat out of a tree. Now its owner will get chronic depression. After defeating Cyborg Superman though, we go back to Metropolis, where Lex starts taunting Superman over a special frequency. Like this whole thing was his plan or something, which I don't understand the story, so maybe it is. But heading over to Brainiac, our final battle begins, which consists of picking up 4 generators and putting them down at 4 different spots, and then heat blasting him with our heat vision. As one last challenge here, they just shove you into an arena with the toughest enemies in the game and tell you to do some objectives that you've been doing all game. It's really lazy to the point where you don't actually get to fight Brainiac 13. Yeah, this giant robot that has been materializing all game. The one promise we had of something cool happening here gets taken care of in the final cutscene. In the end, Steel shows up and gives us our gizmo we've been crafting all game, and stabbing it into Brainiac, bro fucking explodes. We then cut to Lex, who says, "You're average, I'll get him next time." But you know, that's not important. What is important is I realized something here. Lex Luthor has been standing on this exact building all game. Every time we see him, he's standing on this roof. Was there not another conceivable place Superman and Lex Luthor could have met during the game? Finally, in one last cutscene, Lex comes down from his tower for the first time in the game and holds a press conference saying absolutely nothing. Oh, and he also says future in a really funny way.
We will shepherd this great city of ours into the future.
Into the future. The game then ends on a note I could only describe as anticlimactic.
Metropolis is safe, and that's the most important thing. No matter what, I'll always be here to fight the never-ending battle for truth and justice. Always.
And that was Superman Man of Steel. And I've got to say, the game kind of sucks, but not in a good way. Not in a way where it turns around into being something kind of fun. It's just very repetitive, very boring. The game is nothing but just a bunch of repetitive missions and objectives going over and over and over again on different levels. It's so boring and lazy. The gameplay loop is boring. The actors even sound like they're bored. The soundtrack is also incredibly bland. I don't know, I feel like the devs just came up with the idea for this game and then that was it. They made that initial draft of the idea into a full game and got this. I will say though, this game does get points for its unlockable costumes because there's some pretty good picks in here. Golden Age Superman, Black Suit Superman, Kingdom Come Superman. These are pretty awesome suits. The only thing that's unfortunate is that in the game, the camera is pretty far away from the player, so you can't really soak in all the details of these suits. There's also a free roam mode in the extras, which is pretty cool, except so I guess in that respect, it's pretty similar to the rest of the game. It's bland. Overall, there are two sides to this thing. This is a bad game, and it's also a bad Superman game. On just the gameplay, it's clunky, repetitive, frustrating, and mind-numbingly boring. But then on the Superman side, the characters are so fucking boring too. Superman is this cardboard cutout of a person. He's like what people imagine Superman to be. Hell, when I was growing up, I thought Superman was lame because of media like this. Media that made him look boring and unrelatable and nothing but a hero that's like, I'm here to save you, citizen. There's no real story here. It seems like they wanted to tell some sort of sequel to City of Tomorrow, but somehow nothing really happens. No character plots from that comic move forwards. There's barely any plot threads from City of Tomorrow in this game. I don't understand trying to tell a Superman story if you're not gonna tell one. So in the end, you're left with a game that's not fun to play as someone who likes to play video games, and it's not fun to play as a fan of Superman. So who was this made for? Because the average Joe isn't gonna have read Superman City of Tomorrow or know who Brainiac 13 is. So it's not made for the general audience, but it's also not made for the fans. What the hell? That's about it. The game sucks. It's not even fun to complain about. It's getting a nice 3 out of 10. But I do know what you're all thinking. Is this game as close as you can get to being him? Well, no, because a month before this game came out, Superman Shadow of Apocalypse released. And that game has a comprehensible story, bearable flight controls, good voice acting, and it's not amazing by any stretch, but it's a hell of a lot better than this piece of shit. So yeah, fuck you, Superman Man of Steel. This isn't even your review anymore. This is the Superman Shadow of Apocalypse review, and I'm giving it a 5 out of 10.
Win some, lose some. Perhaps next time.
So far, what we've seen is that it's not easy to make a Superman game. There's a whole laundry list of elements you need to nail in order to actually pull it off. You need to utilize your characters, you need to utilize Metropolis, you need damn good music. It's just that Superman is such a unique fictional character in how his world works, and making the perfect Superman game pretty much means inventing several new gameplay mechanics and making them impeccable. But that's just the nature of superhero video games. One of the reasons the Arkham games are so popular is that Rocksteady showed everyone that you could do these things. They made a revolutionary brawling system, several world traversal options which made you feel like Batman, and they also had a pretty damn good story every game. Rocksteady knew who Batman was, they knew his world, and they combined that understanding with their ability to make awesome gameplay.
Don't make me hurt you.
I'll tell you what I know.
Thank you.
Superman has never gotten this treatment. He's never gotten the honor of having a dev that actually understands him. However, I think today, the game we're dealing with is probably the one that gets closest. In the year 2006, Superman returned in a bizarre sequel to a movie series that had been dormant for nearly 2 decades. It was a film chock full of recasts, melodrama, love triangles, and Kevin Spacey. But of course, as was the sacred, unbreakable tradition of the mid-2000s, a big blockbuster movie needed a big blockbuster movie video game. And a few months after Superman returned, we were blessed, or perhaps cursed, with Superman Returns, the video game for the Xbox, Xbox 360, and PS2. But what the developers at EA probably didn't know when they were working on this thing is that the product they were making would be the very last video game the Man of Steel would lead for nearly 20 years and counting. So while this was Superman's big return, little did we know that in the world of gaming, he would be going away for a very, very long time. So the game starts with a tutorial. Metropolis has become a target for a meteor shower, and there's only one man for the job. Now, I will skip this bit because I'm not ready to talk about gameplay, but I'll say this sequence is awesome. If there ever was a game intro that gave me faith that I was about to experience peak, this is the one. I mean, stopping a meteor shower for the tutorial, if that's the scale we're sitting at for beginners, this shit's gonna be crazy, right?
But after we delay Armageddon, we get a cutscene that takes place 5 years later, where we find that Superman has completely abandoned Earth in search of Krypton. And we learn that Clark has been duped by the biggest villain of them all. Misinformation!
I believed reports that my homeworld Krypton still existed, and I traveled half a universe only to discover I was wrong.
As Clark's ship returns to Earth though, it's intercepted by Mongol, who forces Superman to fight in his Warworld arena. And this bit is also a tutorial, just like a combat one. However, we do learn something really cool about the game here. Superman doesn't have a health bar. In this situation, your failure or victory is dependent on how much the crowd likes you. So if you're getting your ass beat, the enemy gets close to winning, but if you're doing the beating, it slowly starts to swing towards you. Another cool detail here is that if you're winning, the crowd starts chanting your name. It's awesome. By the end of the level, Mongol himself enters the arena to fight us, and this dude is really fucking easy. Like, name a bigger jobber than Mongol in Superman video games. After cementing his clout on Warworld though, Supes travels back to Earth, and we cut to the Fortress of Solitude, where Kevin Spacey has broken in to touch some crystals. And after filling them up, we cut back to Clark, who starts making this game's story a little bit confusing.
But even if Lois's article is right, and the world doesn't need Superman anymore, at least there's still a place for Clark Kent at the Daily Planet.
We then jump into gameplay as Superman. I'm not complaining, but wasn't Clark just going on about how Superman might not be needed anymore? Yeah, who cares? It doesn't matter, because we are Superman. From this point onward, the game lets go of your hand and says, be Superman, and it feels great. First up, the flying feels incredible. Superman is smooth as butter. Wherever you want to go, he goes there. It's easy to control, and yes, the left stick controls backwards, forwards, left and right, and the right stick controls rotation as well as up and down. We have done it. But that's not even the best part of flying. The best part is the super speed, because you know what? I've just got to show you. Yeah, this is what I've been waiting for. Superman game that makes me feel like Superman and feel cool while doing it, man. This is what I've been waiting for. Superman soaring through the skies of Metropolis, looking good, looking fast. The first time you fly around in this game is breathtaking. I mean, how did they get this on the Xbox 360? Metropolis is literally 80 square miles of skyscrapers. It's really impressive to look at. But with a mission popping up, we go to take a look and find that Metallo has returned as well and is terrorizing the streets with his robot army. And this is also where we get our first taste of the general gameplay loop here, because when I say that the robots are terrorizing the streets, they literally are. All these NPCs run around trying to hurt civilians and damage buildings, and it's our job to stop them. On the actual combat side though, I will say that when you're on the ground, it's just kind of okay, because this is one of those brawlers that has a whole menu of combo moves you can execute. Unfortunately, I will say that the game is quite laggy, so the combos are hard to pull off since you don't even know if you're actually getting the timings right. On the other hand, enemies can be beaten by using our powers as well, which are made up of Super Breath, Freeze Breath, and Heat Vision, which are done really well too. Heat Vision is it's whatever. Freeze Breath is cool. Super Breath, on the other hand, is hilarious. Like, you can really blow enemies away. Another thing I love about the powers is how you need to be careful with them because of how your health bar works. Since unlike the Warworld arena, you're not fighting for fans here, you're fighting for Metropolis, and every single NPC or building or car that gets damaged takes away from your overall health pool. So in this game, Superman is invincible. He can't die, but Metropolis can. It's pretty clever since it makes you think like Superman. You stop playing defensively for yourself and start doing it for civilians. You pick targets based on what's going to hurt more people. And when people do get hurt, you can even take them to an ambulance to get your health back. The thing is though, Supes is powerful, and if you use the power wrong, you can end up hurting innocents. It's what makes the fights great. It makes you think like Superman, constantly analyzing a situation to see how you can put an end to it. It's awesome, it's genius, it's a little undercooked,
but we'll get back to that later. After the big fight though, Metallo escapes and we're thrust into the general gameplay loop, which is pretty much you fly around and you wait for a new crisis to pop up in the city, which for this chapter at least, I fuck with big time. Just going around as Supes, helping people, keeping Metropolis safe, it's a dream come true. I think one of the moments that really stuck with me from my first play session was when I learned how to use the burst powers, which are like mega versions of your heat and various breaths. But I was called to a mission, there was nothing fancy, a building was on fire, and I decided to use my burst freeze breath to put it out. I can confidently say this is the best playable Superman in all of gaming. It just ticks so many boxes for me. He's strong, he's fast, he's powerful, and the game isn't scared of giving the player full control over that power. Like, I tried it out. You could do anything with Superman's powers between missions, including murdering everybody on this bridge. But anyways, enough yapping about the gameplay. Let's talk about the story, or more prominently, the lack of one. Now, to explain this to you, I will have to say there is such thing as too much of a good thing. The devs nailed Superman's gameplay, but they clearly had no idea what to do in the story department, because that gameplay loop I was talking about never ends. Since after an hour of flying around doing random missions, we get this question mark icon from the Daily Planet. And you might be thinking, oh yeah, Superman's got a day job. This is probably how we're gonna move the story forwards, right? As Clark Kent. Well, no, because flying to the planet, we get a completely unrelated cutscene of Lex Luthor being pissed off that Superman's back, and finishing that up, yeah, it's right back into the gameplay. That was weird. But continuing onwards, we do all that stuff we were doing before, beating up robots, putting out fires, saving people, yada, 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 yada. And after long enough, we are called back to the Daily Planet for another cutscene that does not involve Superman or Clark Kent.
To think one could create a new world with such a simple little object.
By the way, if you haven't seen Superman Returns, this is all probably very confusing for you, so I will do my best to quickly explain what's going on. Superman Returns is a sequel to the original Superman films, and in that movie series, Lex Luthor is strangely portrayed as a guy who simply wants to be the best criminal ever, but his whole thing in this universe is real estate. Almost every evil plot he hatches in these movies is about real estate or land or some other bullshit.
Land. Real estate.
Land.
They will always need land. How to make the land more valuable? Beachfront property.
Beachfront property.
Worthless desert land.
Land.
Anyways, Krypton in this universe used crystals to grow their cities and tech and all that. So Lex tries to exploit that to create real estate that he can sell. I'm not joking. That's the plot of Superman Returns, and I'm only telling you all this because the game doesn't give a shit about any of that. In between the world's most repetitive gameplay loop, we get these cutscenes which are completely unrelated to what's actually happening in the game. But being thrust out into the open world again, you're probably wondering, gee, Brandos, we spent a lot of time in this world. Is there anything else we can do here? And the answer is kind of. In the open world, there are essentially 3 things you can do. 1, you can mess around with your powers and destroy stuff. 2, you can find stray cats all over the city. Or 3, you can do the Mr. Mixius Pitalik, or you could do Mr. Mixius Pitalik missions. Is that how I say that? Which we gain access to when we run into the guy. And in this cutscene, Mixie says he's stolen some stuff from the Fortress of Solitude, and if we want it back, we need to play his games. Which in this case, we have 2 different types. The racing minigame, which I don't really vibe with. It's probably got something to do with the fact that you're flying and you've got a time limit. It just reminds me of something. I can't tell what though. The other one though is playing as Bizarro. And racing against the time limit, we need to destroy as much stuff as possible. And although this is fun, it's kind of hard since Bizarro has the opposite of Superman's powers. Instead of super breath, he sucks items towards you. Instead of heat vision, he's got freeze vision, and instead of freeze breath, he's got heat breath. But the thing is that all of these powers are drastically less destructive than Superman's set. So while I like the idea of this minigame, it feels weird because they let you off the hook, only to not let you off the hook. Which is strange, because if they were worried about Superman causing all this damage, it doesn't really matter, because Mr. Mixius Pillick literally transforms us into Bizarro. So it's implied that all of this damage really happened and Superman just willingly allowed it. Why not just make it so Superman is the playable character and then Mixie resets all the damage at the end? At least there probably should have been an option if you wanted to play between Bizarro or Superman. But yeah, those are all the things we have to do outside the main mission. And what you're probably realizing right now is just how bare bones this game is. It's very nice to look at, very nice to play, but it feels like a tech demo. Like a large amount of content is genuinely missing here. Like I'm all for Supes flying around Metropolis, fighting bad guys, but this is lazy. You continuously get put in the same situations over and over again, fighting the same enemies, putting out fires. There's times when it feels like you're playing Superman Man of Steel. This game is kind of something that you should be booting up for 30 minutes to get the Superman experience from, and then you shut it down, nothing else. Because any longer and you'll start to see the cracks in the mirage. For instance, how little Superman talks, how few notable characters are in the game, how empty the world actually is. I mean, Metropolis is a place that's been mapped out in the comics over decades, and yet I can barely pick out any important landmarks. Love it or hate it, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League actually built Metropolis with all its history included. While the closer you look here, the more you find that it's just a massive generic city with the Daily Planet in it. It kind of feels like Rage. This is really random, I know, but I've been playing the game lately, and in that game, there is so much detail in the world and its models, but as soon as you get close to anything, it looks like shit. It's all so blurry and undetailed. It's like everything was meant to be looked at and taken in, but not analyzed at all. That's how this game feels. It's the perfect Superman game till you look just a tiny bit closer. Anyways, that's enough complaining for now because I've run out of things to say. So moving onwards, we fight robots till we come face to face with Metallo again, except this time he transforms into a giant robot, which is like, hell fucking yeah. Therapy for Man of Steel, right? I get to fight a giant robot this time. During this fight, Metallo walks around smashing buildings and we have to fight his little drones, throw them at him, and then do that until he's defeated. It's pretty lame if I'm being honest. The only time Metallo even acknowledges your existence in the fight is when you throw a drone at him, which in response to, he'll fire a laser at you and then go back to smashing buildings. It's like, are we fighting here or what? But beating Metallo, our reward comes in the form of a cutscene where Lois is trying to find out what caused the blackout that Lex created. And I think that this is the best representation of how much the game doesn't care about Superman Returns' story. Because Lois is talking to a guy on the phone who tells her where she needs to go to track the blackout, and then he randomly starts yapping about Bizarro escaping containment.
I don't know if you heard, Miss Lee, but Bizarro and some of the other clone experiments ended up escaping during the power outage. Anyway, just thought you should know.
It's obvious which one of these plots is actually going to be relevant to me, the player. But as the dude said, our new big bad is Bizarro, strangely just like Man of Steel. And for the next few levels, we do battle with a bunch of Cadmus clones all over the city. I don't really have a ton to say about this section, except I really like fighting the dragons. It is so satisfying to fight them since you just need to lock onto them, fire your freeze breath, and then when you supersonic charge into them, boom, they're down. One shot, it feels great. The ground force mutants aren't as fun on the other hand though, since this is where we learn Superman has quite the problem with being stunned. Like being invincible, you do need a way to stop the player from totally tanking everything, but the further we get into this game, the more we run up against enemies who will just make Superman fall over for a few seconds. And it gets really annoying because you usually can't dodge or block in time because of the lag. But yeah, apart from that, this section is a lot of filler. And when we come up against Bizarro, the fight is really just a lot of move spamming. And bringing him down, we're rewarded with another awesome cutscene. In it, Lois continues her investigation into the blackout and sneaks aboard Lex's yacht. She's then caught by Lex, who was just waiting behind this door, I guess. And holy shit, man, watching this game's cutscenes is painful. For lack of a better word, they're cringe. I can't explain this feeling. They just make me feel uncomfortable.
Millions of people will die.
Billions!
Once again, the press underestimates me. Come on, say it.
Luther, you're insane.
No, not that. Superman will never let— Wrong!
But Lex reveals his awesome plan for using Kryptonian crystals to make marketable land and kidnapping Lois. Superman does fuck all because another prison break thingy has happened and Brainiac's minions have gotten free. And after this, we do the whole mission formula thing again for an hour, beat them, and then we get another cutscene showing that Mongol has arrived on Earth to take his revenge against Superman. And when I say Mongol, I actually mean Overcast, who was the guy we fought in the tutorial, because this motherfucker is pretty much in every single mission of this section. He shows up at the start, then again halfway through, then again at the end. Like, guys, this was a tutorial enemy. I beat him in the tutorial. He's not threatening. But eventually we catch up to Mongol and show him the door, which earns us the pleasure of yet another cutscene, where we find that Clark actually does have a day job. Yeah, despite what this game would have you believe, he's actually not Superman all the time. Clark receives a fax from Lois asking for help, and he flies out to her coordinates. Unfortunately, he's too late to stop Lex Luthor's big plan, and Lex shoots off his kryptonite crystal thingy, which creates a big tornado. And thus, the final boss fight begins. I'm not joking. The final fight of this game is a big tornado. Like, I gotta say, in this game, we faced some real crappy boss fights, but this one takes the cake. Like, you gotta fight these tornadoes, then save a bunch of people, then finally you have to go head to head with a mega tornado. And you need to use your heat vision and freeze breath to counteract the tornado's temperature. In the end, we beat the tornado and are given one last cutscene. The funny thing is that while this game has completely ignored the movie plot in these last few minutes, the final cutscene is pretty much a one-for-one animation of the movie. So Superman flies off to Lex's Kryptonite Island, and the two have this back and forth. Kryptonite! Lex beats the snot-ass Superman, kicking him into the ocean, but luckily Lois rescues him, and Superman lifts the Kryptonite Island off Earth, saving everyone. Lois then writes an article saying Superman's the bomb, and yeah, that's the campaign. Now, with this being an open world game, there's actually quite a lot of post-game content. Like, I'm talking nearly 2.5 hours here. Although I don't really know if I should be surprised considering how low effort the rest of the game is. Like, it really must have just been a copy and paste job for most of these encounters. Really, there's not a lot of new content here. It's just a lot of previous fights again, and you better believe our boy Overcast shows up at least 2 times. We also unlock Superman's Golden Age suit here, which is one of the 3 available suits in the game. I didn't talk about it when we unlocked his spacesuit, well, because I don't like it. But yeah, we mop up the rest of the in-game encounters, and on the last mission, you'd kind of expect that you'd get something for doing all this post-game extras. Well, maybe a little box saying, congratulations, you did it. Wrong! Once you complete your last mission, your save file will now say 100%, and you're done. Which feels a little bit confusing considering 2 things. 1, you don't need to complete the Mixius Mits, the Mixius Mits Piddle, Mr. Mixius Mits, the Mr. Mixius, fuck, the Mistius Mr. Mixius Mits Pick. Number 1, you don't have to complete this motherfucker's missions to get 100%. And 2, the random missions that we've been doing,
citizens are in danger, Superman.
Don't stop. It's crazy. This game is so incapable of switching things up. This game is about 8 hours long if you're grinding the story missions. And in those 8 hours, you are doing the same couple of objectives dozens of times. Put out a fire, beat up these ground enemies, beat up these air enemies. That's pretty much the long and short of all the objectives in this game. Going back to my Rage comparison, the easiest way I can sum up this game is to say it feels fake. On the surface, it looks like a Superman game, it feels like a Superman game, but then you go just below the surface and you look for things that make up Superman, but they're not there. Superman as a character is not a consideration in this game. There's barely a thing he does because he decides to do it. The supporting cast are barely there too. Lois doesn't see Superman till the final cutscene. Lex doesn't speak to him till the final cutscene. Superman doesn't even do any daily planet work until the second last cutscene. What I'm trying to get at is that this is a Superman game in raw presentation only. This is a game where you play as Superman, but you're not playing as the character of Superman. So without a worthwhile story or any depth behind the gameplay past responding to a few objectives, Superman Returns Returns really comes across as more of a simulator. Because if I were to rate this based off of it being a sim, hands down, it's fantastic. Superman is really fun to play as. It's great to soar across the city. It's awesome to blow away a bunch of enemies or laser them into oblivion. Functionally, it's got Superman nailed. But a video game needs to be more than just a solid gameplay foundation. It needs to give a player a reason to keep going. It needs to stay interesting. There are ways to do this. You can put more depth into your gameplay and broaden the situations a player can get into, or you can make your story deeper to make the gameplay seem less important, like a lot of walking sims do. Superman Returns doesn't do any of this though. Its story is jarringly disconnected from the player's experience, and the gameplay, it's so shallow you could play this thing for 30 minutes and pretty much have seen everything. So in the end, this is a weird game because it's really good up until the moment where you go, I have to do this mission again? Just that realization that you're not actually playing a story or anything, but are instead grinding XP to continue the story, it really sucks. The game just becomes this repetitive slog. It straight up is just too much of a good thing. Like, this game has great music, right? But they play it all the time. So it becomes really annoying.
Kitten population.
That's what this whole game is like. There's just too much of one thing and too little of everything else. Too much Superman Simulator, you know? Give me more of, I don't know, Clark Kent stuff. Give me indoor missions. I don't care. Give me something else. The gameplay is great, but that's all the experience is. This game really is shallow, and that's disappointing because I really wanted to like this game. But apart from it being a good Superman simulator to play for maybe 10 minutes, there's not much else to like here, which is why I'm going to be giving it a 5 out of 10. So here we are, the end of the road. Through this series, we have looked at 3 out of dozens of Superman games. 3 of what I consider to be Superman's biggest video game milestones. His worst, his most honest attempt, and his afterthought of a movie tie-in video game. But what have we actually learned through our series? All the way back at the start of this whole thing, I stated that I wanted to find the reason for Superman's consistent failures in video games. And now that we've reached the end of our road, I think I might have found it. Developers look at Superman and see a problem. He's invincible, he's stronger than most of his enemies, he can fly, he can punch through walls. How are you meant to create obstacles that the player can't easily bypass? That's probably one of the harder things to get right. But I think what a lot of devs miss is that sometimes you can get your obstacles from the story. Superman does have limitations, but they come from his Clark Kent side. To explain it best, I'll tell you how I would make a Superman game. And pretty much, I would copy Spider-Man PS4. In that game, Spider-Man can't just be Spider-Man all the time. Bro actually has a job, but this job is tied directly into the story. So when you go into work, you complete puzzles, interact with Otto, you build character relationships, you shake up the gameplay, and you further the story. What exactly is stopping us from doing that with Superman? What I would do is I would adapt the story of the late Mr. Kent. This was a Superman the Animated Series episode where Clark is investigating the case of a man who's being put on death row. Clark wants to prove that the man is innocent, and while running against the clock, his investigation gets the attention of some shadowy people who try to assassinate him. The rest of the episode from there isn't really important, but it's just kind of that premise that I would adapt. I'd make it so that Clark is trying to clear someone's name, and his investigation gets a hit put out on him. And through the game, you would switch back and forth between Superman and Clark. Superman for the open world action parts, and Clark for the parts where he needs to gather information. As Clark, you would investigate the underbelly of Metropolis, fleshing out the city, and your investigation would lead you to big name villains for Superman to fight. But Clark Kent wouldn't like gameplay either, since there could be sequences where you need to protect your identity by escaping an area as Clark. It could be the equivalent of Batman stealth sequences, using your powers discreetly to avoid enemies. It would also be pretty funny if getting shot in these sequences damaged your clothes, and if the enemy saw too much of your costume, it would blow your cover. In the end, I would definitely have the final boss be Lex Luthor. It would turn out that he ordered the prisoner to be put on death row, and I think it would tie a good bow on everything. In the end, the game would just be a Superman game. Shove as many Superman characters in as you can, shove as many villain appearances and fights in as you can, make a Superman game, don't hold back. Because all these games try to be a Superman game, but they never work because they're only slices of the character. And those slices are often his powers and nothing else. Superman is more than his powers. That's the point of the character. What makes him interesting is how he uses those powers, as well as when he doesn't. That's how you make a Superman game. Explore Clark Kent. Explore Superman, his methods, his life. You will find places for gameplay, puzzles, and of course, flying around, beating up robots, and putting out fires. As Superman 64 shows us, a Supes game needs WB to keep their fucking noses out of it. As Superman Man of Steel shows us, a Supes game needs to be well designed. And as Superman Returns shows us, even if a Supes game is well designed, it needs to be more than just about being Superman. Because at the end of the day, the character of Superman is about more than just being Superman. So wrapping this up, let's pose one final question. Will we ever see a good Superman game? I'll say, yeah, we totally will. Superman is still a popular character, and ever since the Arkham games and then Spider-Man PS4 came out, people have realized that you can have a quintessential superhero game. It is possible, and all that means is that there is a perfect Superman game out there that hasn't been made yet. It just needs the right dev team, and that dev team needs to watch these videos. Anyways, guys, this brings us to the end of our series on Superman versus video games. Thank you so much for watching. Tell me what you thought. Tell me how you would make your Superman video game. Also, tell me if you like the new movie. As of recording, the movie is not out just yet, but it is very close. So let me know what you thought. But yeah, I've really enjoyed putting together these videos. I've always been quite the DC fanboy, and I think it was really cool that in this series, I was able to kind of bring that passion onto the channel because, you know, at the end of the day, this channel is really a lot about the stuff that I'm passionate about. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one, and don't forget to look up.